Hi, welcome to my video. I'm Jennifer Roberts. You're catching me on my YouTube channel, True Divine 44. You can also get me on my Facebook page, True Divine, and it is the True Divine for both Instagram and Twitter. Any likes, shares, subscribes, and comments are greatly appreciated, and much love to everybody who does that for me thus far. I appreciate you all. So this is part of the writing on the wall that videos that I put out. They're about my knowings, combined with psychic knowings, combined with things that I'm just led to ponder, think about. I'm always writing notes, as I've mentioned so many times. I've got notepads everywhere, and they keep getting filled up because I like to delve in. I like to see things. I like to see synchronicities and follow up on them. So this is about the old ways, not the ancient ways, just the old ways compared to where we are now. I got to the point of, and I've thought about this a lot in the past, discussed it with various people in the past, and I've known people from all walks of life. I've had many walks of life. So, there's a wide array of people that I like to get to know. And some people that I've known live life on the extreme, still do. And other people, are more stiff upper lipped and more conformist. And then you have other people that are much more into nature within my family and within my life. So I have people on all walks of life. So I like to look at how we're doing now and knowing, having certain knowings of just how I felt previously, whatever I've brought with me into this lifetime, whatever memories, DNA memory, whatever ancestral memory or knowings I've brought with me. I feel very connected to the old ways and indeed to some extent the ancient ways. And so looking back to, Viking period, looking back to what we had then in that period of time and what we have now. And having a look, hey Theodore, this is a little Viking, aren't you? Blonde hair, grey eyes. So, I'm in harnessing, I often do harness the inner Viking with the hair and stuff. And so, and Theodore's harnessing the barbarian look with the hair as he likes it, curly and free. So we've got this thing that we seem to have as humans, in that we have gotten to a point in the cycle where it seems that in many ways and within many people, it takes some kind of crisis point in their individual lives or on the collective stage to zap them into shape, to make them want to make changes. It takes us getting into so much debt until we find we can't feed our families before we realize that something has to be done. It takes us, for many people, to mess around at school, to not get, or mess around in homeschooling and not learn, and then all of a sudden have to do something for themselves. And at that point, again, the crisis point kicks in. They go back to night school, or they start training, or they start learning from somebody that they maybe should have learned from all of the time previously. And so this crisis point thing is interesting to me. And I do feel that, I'm not just always laying blame on the systems, because we built the systems. We might not be in power of the systems anymore, but generations before us within our DNA strands have built those systems, including us, through our complacency. And so we find ourselves living within that system, but the complacency almost gets us to run into these crisis points, because the systems are so vast and seemingly robust most of the time, that, you know, things run very shiny and smooth, and we expect great service. We usually get great service, but, you know, what are we sacrificing underneath all of that? And so, to try and get back to the points I'm trying to make, let's go back. I think that if we start in the old ways, excuse me, we look at the passion, the drive, the force to be reckoned with of the Viking, of the shield maiden. We look at the bravery. We look at how robust they are. Why? Well, they understood that life is a cycle. Life, death, rebirth. And so they drove home that to their children, and there was a need, there was a crisis point always, because if they didn't act, if they didn't take action to build certain crops, to build winter provisions, to reinforce boats, to look after boats, to make sure that weapons were sharpened and looked after, to make sure whatever tools they had were primed and ready. If they didn't do that, then death certainly occurred. If they didn't do that, then their child's death would certainly occur, because they lived in harsh elements. They lived out in the elements for the most part. And so they were absolutely symbiotic and at one with the elements, with the Great Mother. They relied on her for the beauty and the abundance that crops would bring. They relied on her for the wood in the trees that could build shelter and boats. They relied on her for the vegetation that she grew freely. But also there was an expectation from the mother that they took the action. They took the action to reap what she sowed, and they took the action at the right time. So there was the recognition of the cycles within the cycles, the moon cycle in itself being of great interest to them, you know, mapping a month with the moon cycle, mapping pregnancies, mapping menstrual cycles within the community, which are more often than not would have been in a cluster. Because when women live together, when women spend a lot of time together, they tend to match up with each other's body within a few, give or take a few days. And so even that is a way of us seeing the connection between the waters, the fluids that we have within the water, the blood, that, you know, that within these cycles, that we marry up with the elements around us, whether that's other people or whether that's the moon itself. We marry up with other people and the moon in these cycles. It becomes symbiotic. And so we look at even that and we dig deep into that, and the moon itself, the cycle of the moon representing the cycle of the female, the cycle of coming in to being born, to being a mother, to becoming an old crone. So, and with all of those attributes that are within that, the joy of a baby, the abundance that a baby brings, the line that it continues, and then with the mother, you know, another person is born. When somebody has a child, each child that they have, a new mother is born. Again, that strengthens the crew, it strengthens the tribe, because there's nothing more fierce than a protective mother. There's nothing more abundant than a mother who has just given birth, with her breast milk, with the love that she infuses into the collective energy source. And then the old crone, you know, the menopause period, the part of that cycle where that woman becomes even more fearsome because she has the experience, not just the experience that she absorbs around her, but she's experienced giving life. She's experienced being an extension of the Great Mother herself, who gives life, who gives birth, brings death, cycles it around again. And so she becomes an extended arm, and with that comes intuition and wisdom. And so there's deep meanings, but very simple meanings also, with the connection of the all to the all. And then we look at the cycle of the way that the seasons go, you know, being able to plot those months to collectively make up a season, to therefore being able to be active beforehand, to know when to sow the crops, to know when to plant the seed, to know when to water the seeds. And so there was a dependence on the mother, and because of that, you were always in action, you were always in preparation, you were always refining, you were always being creative. And so but because of the crisis point just being life itself, because we were living within the cycles of the Great Mother, we were living within the cycles of greater beings than us. We were connected, because the more we were connected in a tribe, the more we used each other as attributes, the more success we would have, the more robust we would be. And so there was this deep knowing that, you know, you just do. And so we didn't wait for that crisis point to be upon us. With that, the night and day, you know, we had to work, you know, with the mother. You know, there wasn't the street lights. So the night was preserved for lovemaking. It was preserved for meditation, for deep connection in any which way, shape or form, for sleep at the right time, getting the right kind of rejuvenation from the moon within the different aspects of the night sky. Each aspect of the night sky doing a different thing in our body. So we see the reverence of the provision of the Great Mother. There was reverence to it. Not so much worship, just acknowledgement of what it gives and what it can take away, and how much to enjoy and be and grow in the experience as much as possible, because each cycle eventually will come to an end. And that end was driven by wanting to be a good end, an end that meant something, an end that showed that you had fought for life, life had fought for you, and that, you know, you went because in a way that was honorable, either protecting your tribe or at home with your family in your sleep. Something that brought good memories, good stories to tell the next generations further down the line. And so then we look at the health. You know, the health of each other meant something, because we were making health remedies for each other. So it drove us again to learn as much as we could about which leaf was best to stop bleeding, about which paste was best to make to stop an infection, about how to apply heat to a wound to cauterize it. What was the cleanest thing to use? And that was by trial and error, getting to know the mother, knowing the mother so well. So we come to the movement in the movement into Christianity. an organized religion that didn't make sense to the Vikings, because within the Viking time, there was reverence to deity, there was reverence to God and goddess. But you know, it wasn't as, and this might offend some people, and I don't mean it to offend, but if it offends, look into why it offends. If it triggers you, look into why it triggers you. Because I can't be helping anybody if I'm too afraid to trigger people, because actually sometimes when I get triggered, it's annoying as hell. But it's good, because I've learned to look at those triggers and say, hold on a minute, why is this bothering me so much? Is it something I need to change within me, that this bothers me so much? Because I can choose to either listen or not listen. But you know, if it bothers me so much, then there's something within me that's listening, that knows it needs to listen. And so, you know, we all have the capacity to be like gods and goddesses. We all are an extension of something powerful, the creative source. But you know, in Viking time, it wasn't just given. You had to have a personal drive to want to be remembered well, to want to have stories told of you in a good light. Whether that be the person that stayed at home farming the land, just being a good mother or a good father, creating good stock of children that went down the line with good morals, with drive and purpose and action. Or whether that be a Viking warrior, that stories of old were told for many, many years after the passing. It wasn't just a given. If you didn't act well towards your tribe, if you didn't act well towards your partner, if you didn't act well towards your children, then it wasn't just a given that you were a god or a goddess. You had to do things extraordinarily good. You had to do things extraordinarily well. You had to be extraordinarily brave, extraordinarily driven, extraordinarily courageous to absorb that title, to be engulfing of that title. So it wasn't just a label that, you know, is as freely given out as it is today. It was an inner drive. It was an inner purpose, an inner action that like waves pulled us to want to get there, to want to be remembered that way, to be talked about that way, to be understood that way. And so we look at that and the reverence that they would give to people who got there, who did do action that really made a difference, that really made an impact. The same way as within the people, that reverence was given to the Great Mother. It was given to the mountains, to the sea, to the sand, to the wind, to the earth, to fire. It was given to the thunderstorms. Not all of them being gods and goddesses in themselves, but them embodying the essence of an aspect of goddess or God. And so there was reverence there. There was the connection there. The strongest warrior, you know, would know that you can be struck down by lightning and there ain't a thing you can do about it. It was just part of it. But even that exhilaration drove them to give reverence to the lightning. The power that would fill the air, the electricity that will be felt, that is felt when we have a thunderstorm. I love it. It's lightning, literally. It charges the air. You can feel it, you absorb it, it gives you power. And so looking at Christianity, you know, this organized religion that stole many, many ways of the pagan, many ways of the Viking, but wrapped them up in a completely different wrapper. And so with that, we moved from naturally having that freedom of sovereignty, that freedom to prove to ourselves that we were entitled to embody the essence of a god or a goddess. We moved to a place of allowing others to be sovereign above us. The messages that Mother Earth herself, that Spirit would give, was all of a sudden reserved for a few that were dressed up in, you know, fancy clothes, and that would be locked away from society, getting these messages to deliver. And so it was externalized even more, it was removed from self even more. All of these rules that were put in place within Christianity embodied some, but took away a lot of the understanding that you are free, but there are forces greater than you, i.e. you're free to go out on the seas, but a thunderstorm could take you. You know, so there was always forces greater than. But all of a sudden Christianity started to create this illusion of a one force that was in judgment of you, that could take you, that could choose whether you were good or bad. And this one force was diluting information to you via just a few people, these priests that were at the top. And so we go from having that hard life, yes, but that aspect of, you know, life is a crisis in those times, that you were always taking action to do well in the crisis, i.e. the winter, the summer, the rain, the drought. And so instead of us working with the elements, there was all of a sudden this separatism. And with that, of course, there was the introduction of an ease of life. Somebody else was in charge. And, you know, for some people, I suppose that might have been some kind of reprieve from the hard life, living with the elements, living with the decision. But all of a sudden, this middleman was sneaking in between us and the mother herself, in that, you know, they decided whether you were doing well or not. It wasn't just by your fruits that you were seen. It wasn't just by the crops that you were provided for. All of a sudden, a portion of those crops were being taken to pay for the very middleman that was standing in the middle, the king, the queen. And it was taken through this, you know, separatism, this externalization, this hero worship. And so then we go to the moon cycles and the cycles within cycles, and us all knowing that. So not even fearing death as much as we do today. Death feels so odd to us, even though there's so much of it. It feels so odd to us. It's so sad to us. And of course it will be sad to an extent, but I do feel the way that we're sad about death now is a very different and more damaging way than the way we felt about death then. Because again, it became separate. You know, we weren't preparing the bodies, we weren't burning the bodies. All of a sudden it was separate. And, you know, the funeral was being led by, again, somebody above you. look at where we are today with funerals. You know, yes, everything's done for you, but it's so odd if you say, well, no, I'm preparing the body. No, I want to put the body out to sea. Let the waters take the body back. Let the cycle continue. It's all looked upon so odd, but if you think about it, it's a part of us. It's a part of this cycle. And so, you know, it makes it more difficult because, again, we're just not used to the process of it. We're not prepared for it because the process isn't there. And so with this linear thinking, you know, there's this almost, in a lot of people, I see almost this fatalism of, wow, it's going to end soon anyway. Not thinking about the other side, not thinking about, well, where do I level up on the other side then? You know, if I'm not working real hard to refine myself in this existence, then what about the next existence? Where do I end up? On the same level or lower? Because I didn't put any effort in to refine myself, to chisel myself, to prime myself. And so then we look at the fact that, you know, our lives have been deliberately made so busy. And so there's always something else to do. People get really hung up and really struggle with meditation. During this last 7 months, look at us. A lot of people have done fine, but a lot of people have really suffered because they're either not used to being in their tribe at home with their family, or they're not used to being on their own. They're not used to being quiet in their thoughts. They're used to keeping busy, busy, busy all the time. And so we've seen people suffer. We've seen people falter and fall. We've seen the fact that a lot of relationships this year have broken up or are indeed going through the process of doing so. Because again, you know, we've been able to put off and be busy and ignore the key elements of, you know, are we in a symbiotic relationship? Is there a give and take here? Is there a push and pull? Is there reverence here? So because we've been so busy and kept so busy, you know, that we haven't had to think about that. But obviously in this period of time, some people have been forced to do so. And so then we go from where we see the polytheistic view of the Viking, of the purpose for everything, the symbiotic relationship with everything, the cause and effect within everything. We go to the externalization of things, to the very point that a lot of people anyway, don't recognize the earth that we live on, that literally we can watch it give birth and parts of it die every single day. If you've got a garden, if you've got a park close by, you can see it doing so. You can see in the autumn the dropping of the leaves in the trees, and you get to see the beauty in both the birth, the green leaves that come through, the shoots that come through the ground, and then the beauty of the oranges and reds and browns in the autumn, and the beauty and the death in that. The crisp noise that I love making on leaves when you walk through them. And so and the relationship that has, the cycle that has, those leaves turning to mulch and nourishing the tree and allowing those new shoots to grow through the branches in the next season. So with that being said, we go from the polytheistic view to the purpose in everything, the beauty in everything, and we go to the externalization of the fact to the point where people don't recognize this mother as a living being. People hardly recognize each other as living beings. You see people attacking people within their own sections of the community. You see people wanting to join movements because they feel that I think it's because they're bored. I think it's because they've got this urge within that they know they should be taking action and enjoying this experience, but also challenging themselves in this experience. But they don't feel they have the wherewithal to do that in themselves and then let that reflect out from them. They want to join a crew, feel safe in a crew. Well, that's all good. Tribes are good. Movements can be good. But people are doing it now haphazardly. You know, they're not getting to know the core of the tribe, what the real ethics of that tribe is, what the real ethics of that person is, what the morals are, what the drive is, what the purpose is, before they jump in. And I think it's because we seem for too long now, because of all of this externalization of everything, we all of a sudden, I think, have gotten to crisis point, because all of a sudden we've created these systems through our complacency. We have put in power and exalted the few that are in power right now, whether it's the generations before us or even us now. You know, we've clapped our hands and smiled at presidents, at governors, at politicians, at MPs, prime ministers. You know, we've clapped our hands when they bring in another ease of life, to make life easier, because easier is always good. It would seem everything that they bring in, for a long time now anyway, that has been easier and of a kindness, has always had a nefarious thing behind it. Why? Because they are doing exactly what we all should be doing. They might not be doing it for the light, they might not be doing it for the collective, but they certainly are living their experience to the full. They certainly are harnessing their powers to the fullest. The problem is that the many, and many within the many, got complacent, and we fell for the externalized forces, the externalized deities. We fell for the externalized hero worshipping. We fell for all of that, to the point where generations down from the Vikings, kings could do very little good. Queens could do very little good, and still people would pay their taxes, starve themselves to death to do so, take the punishments, usually sometimes for the same crimes that the queens and kings were committing themselves. Now we see that whole armies will go and do the bidding of wars. We haven't learned anything in that we give reverence to army members. Now, I love soldiers, men and women. I love the action that they have in them. But I feel that a lot of people join the army because they have this DNA memory of Viking-like energy and other energies, warrior-like energies in their DNA. And they know that it's not getting used, and somehow, some way within them, they seek this action, they seek this status, this warrior status, which is all well and good. The problem is we've externalized that to such a point that, you know, presidents, royalty, PMs, MPs, governors decide what we fight for. And half of the time they don't even tell us what we're really fighting for, what we're going to steal, what we're going to hide. So much for the purpose, a lot of it, to continue this externalization, this separation, artifacts of true knowledge of where we come from, true knowledge of the powers that we have within, true knowledge of how we are so connected to the Great Mother, the skies above us, the stars above us, the moon, the planets, how it's one big system with many moving parts, but all of those parts having an effect on the other. And so, where do I want to go with this? The old ways understood that everything had an effect upon everything. Everyone had an effect upon everyone, one way or the other. Even if they could understand that generations down, if they brought up their children well, that they had more of a chance of generations further down creating more good generations. Then we go to the fact that the Christianity, this organized religion idea coming in, particularly in the UK, and we see this externalization, this division, this fear of judgment. And so there's parts of the old ways that were implanted into Christianity. There's huge parts of it, but they're wrapped up in a different wrapper. We need to start unwrapping ourselves a little bit. We need to start knowing ourselves more. We need to start feeling more at one with the environment and elements around us. We need to start showing that we are at one with the elements and the people and the energy around us. You know, we see that this passive nature hasn't got us very far at all. Because now within these systems of these organized religions, we have got so many systems that govern what we do, even when it's not good for us, not good for the collective even. Look at how many things have not been good for the collective over the last 7 months. Even when evidence is staring us right in the face, contradictions are staring us right in the face, we still do as we're told to a great extent. That's odd behavior. And so it does feel like we're coming to a crisis point. Unfortunately, people in the many have not been doing the work to refine themselves, to prime themselves, to be the warrior. And instead of it just being individual crisis, personal crisis, there's this collective crisis. Now, not for 1 minute do I think it's actually the crisis that they say it is. Again, it's wrapped up in a different wrapper. It doesn't make sense. Numbers don't make sense. The evidence doesn't make sense. But again, through this externalization, you know, this making this fear of a particle that could get in you and make you sick. Literally, just doing that has been enough for so many to just stop life and not argue too much about it. You know, if we were back in the old ways, the old days, in the UK, no king or queen could have governed that, because people were still too connected with the fact that we can't stop life, can't stop death, and we certainly can't stop living within that cycle, because our young will die. You know, you can't be fearful of death to the point where you cause death unnecessarily. But you stop life, you stop providing, you stop being allowed to work, so that you cause death. And that's what we've allowed to happen over the last 7 months, because we've externalized so much. We've lost so much grit. We've lost so much strength. We've lost so much bravery. Why? Because of externalizing and fear. These systems that have been put in place have fed us fear. And the main thing is fear of death. It's one guarantee that we're all going to experience death. But we need to live well. We need to live brave. We need to live with purpose. We need to live in a way that our children, our young, the people around us talk about us well after we've gone. That they have a reverence about us and to us because we've done something good. We've left a good imprint on the soil that we stand on. And so I hope that made sense. I don't know if I babbled a bit too much, but you know, it is what it is. I think it's an important message for the people who need to hear it right now. To get that grit, to get out your shield, get out your sword, you know, theoretically speaking, a bit. And work towards life and not always be doing as you're told out of fear of death. I think that's all I need to say. So much love. Thank you for listening. I hope it made sense. I hope it touches some hearts, because I know it's something that I've been thinking about. I don't know for how long, but over this last 7 months, you know, I've been thinking about it a lot and seeing how a lot of people are just ready to sit down, be quiet, be subservient, do things even when they don't want to or know deep down inside, you know. Have a look at the boxes. Have a look at the boxes that those paper thin masks come in. See what they don't protect you against. Yet a lot of people are still just wearing them. Even though laughably so, that actually will ultimately, over a period of time, lower the immunity, lower your oxygen levels. A lot of people don't make sense to me right now. I understand why, I understand how we got here. But a lot of it, the actions that people aren't taking, don't make sense to me right now. So much love, be balanced and be whole. If you'd like a personal tarot reading with me, energy work or spiritual guidance work, get in touch with me with the details below. Much appreciated to all of the new clients and all of the old clients that return. You really help me, my family, and you help me be able to do this, put out other stuff for people to listen to. Much love. Mwah.